Do you know what's the number one thing that stops you from taking action towards what you believe is right? You caring too much of what other people think. You might not know this, but I'm 1000% sure that if you care so much about other people's opinions, then you're also weak, not confident, and afraid to speak your true thoughts when you're confronted. Because if we were to look deeper, these bad qualities all stems from you caring too much. And in this video, I'm gonna explain what causes you to care so much about other people's opinions and reactions, and how to stop giving a fuck, because the more you care, the more miserable your life is gonna be. So what is it that we care so much about? Is it our looks, the way we dress, the way we carry ourselves, the way we talk, our status? Well, it turns out it's all of them. You're ugly, broke, walks funny, and can't form a sentence when you open your mouth. If this is you, well, congratulations, you're at the bottom 1%. You don't need to finish watching the rest of this video because you have nothing to lose, literally. With that, other people's opinions should be the last thing that you should be worrying about. But most people are average looking, average income, and average at most things. They want to achieve higher goals, improve their quality of life, and speak what they believe is right. So worrying about other people's opinion is what keeps them average, literally, because they're trapped in an invisible square that's drawn by other people's opinion, and they're afraid to step out of line because it's not normal. So why do you care so much about what other people think? Well, there are three answers to this question. Number one is social acceptance. Now, let's wind the clock back to ancient times. Humans are evolved to be social animals. We are tribal, that's what we are. Because we are stronger together as a group. We have a better chance of survival as a group. You can't do everything by yourself. You need people to hunt, you need people to build, you need people to defend your territory, and most importantly, you need people to mate. If you're by yourself, you can only be at one place at a time, and that drastically decreases your chances of survival and reproduction. So then, if you were different from the rest of your group, whether you have different beliefs and opinions, or you disobey the societal norm, people will see you as an outcast, so you're more likely to get ejected from the group. So then, being socially acceptable is good, right? Now let's wind the clock back to modern days. We no longer need to go out there to hunt, build, and stick to a group to survive and reproduce. But that survival programming is still hardwired in our head. We can't get rid of it. It's still at the foundation to how we make our decisions. I remember when I was 15 years old, the iPhone 6 was like the epiphany of technological innovation since the iPhone 5. It was bigger, better, and more aesthetic looking. And almost everyone in my school has the latest iPhone 6, apart from myself. I only had a Samsung Galaxy Mini that's incredibly slow and it shuts off every once in a while without me doing anything. I wanted an iPhone so bad because everyone has it and I feel like an outsider, a weirdo. And it was signaling that I don't have the financial capabilities to keep up with the group. I was so ashamed of my Samsung phone that I kept it in silence mode, so whenever I get a call, I would hang up and call them back later in private because I didn't want people to know that I didn't have an iPhone. This is the type of seeking for acceptance behavior that leads to constantly trying to fit into the crowd, afraid of being judged because people's validation is that important. So you'll do anything to please others and spend your entire life thinking and doing things within a boundary. The second one is embarrassment. Let's wind the clock back to ancient times again. If you were injured, lost a limb, or caught a disease, it was very likely that you'll get kicked out from a tribe because you are now a liability. You can no longer provide enough value for the tribe because you can't function like other normal people. This is also one of the reasons why, in the animal kingdom, those who lost a limb in a fight or escaping predators are always getting bullied within their group because they can't fight back. And shame is also a factor that we've developed throughout history, because if you were caught stealing food, being disloyal, or disrespecting the leaders within the tribe, it'll make you feel a sense of shame because it makes you seem untrustworthy. And feeling shameful is uncomfortable. Now let's look at modern times. We tend to avoid embarrassing moments like slipping and falling, saying the wrong thing on camera, being seen as a beginner at something, because it shows a lack of competency, which leads to shame. Even though we don't live in the ancient tribal eras anymore, and these aren't life and death situations, our brain still overreacts and gives you this fear that you might get abandoned by your tribe. Now the last reason is status. Now let's look back one last time. In tribal societies, survival isn't just about your strength and your hunting skills. It was also about your social status, your position within the group, and your reputation. The simplest way to determine if you are high status is your influence and your abundance of resources. If I have more land, more mates, more tribesmen than you, which means I have a higher status than you. Like the peacocking behavior, for example. Animals like peacocks grows a big, flashy tail, not because it helps them hunt or escape predators, in fact, this slows them down, but it signals fitness. And it's showing to other peacocks that I'm strong and resourceful, that I can afford this giant, useless feather and still survive. Fast forward today, people can't miss the opportunity to show off their status, whether it's in person or online. But in reality, a luxury car doesn't get you to the grocery store any faster than a Honda. A Rolex doesn't tell time more accurate than a Casio. A designer handbag doesn't carry more things than a backpack. These are just signals that they have an abundance of resources. It's like their version of, look at my giant tail of feathers. So if social acceptance, embarrassment, and status are the three main reasons why you care so much, then how do we stop caring? Let's start with social acceptance, because I deal with this all the time. I have this uncontrollable sense of self-consciousness that I think my life is a show. That every time when I step my foot out into public, I have to be at my best because I think everyone is constantly looking and judging my every movement. But are they really? Here's a challenge for you. I want you to remember 3 random strangers that you saw in public today, whether that's in a grocery store or on the street. Describe the clothes and shoes they wear. Impossible, right? It's because we simply don't care. Our brain works like a filter, and it filters through useless information. And it's the same with other people. If you are extremely self-conscious in public, like constantly pulling up your pants, adjusting your hair, trying to walk a certain way because you think people are looking at you, they're not. You're just a part of the setting of that place, the NPC in their world. Everyone in public is just going about their lives and nobody cares if you have a bad haircut or something like that. So realizing how little people care will get your mind out of that tribal survival response. Now, if you want to avoid embarrassment, ask yourself this. If I embarrass myself in front of this person or this group of people, will it kill me? Will it change my life forever? Will they think about it for the rest of their lives? The answer is no, but at the time, our brain will associate that with shame and uncomfortableness. So then what do? I want you to pick out the ugliest and baggiest clothing that you have and give it a personality. What do I mean? You wear it in public and pretend that you're playing a character. Speak with a different tone and walk with a different way than you normally would. Because once you've done that for a longer period of time, your brain will disassociate embarrassment with death. And since you can pull it off with the ugliest version of you, you're now more comfortable with the real version of yourself. If you think that's too much work, you can try this. There's a trick I like to call the reverse spotlight effect. The spotlight effect means people tend to believe that they're being noticed more than they really are. So reverse spotlight effect, which is basically shining the spotlight at other people instead of yourself. You remove the focus onto others instead of yourself. You do it by asking them questions, asking about their life, what they have going on, giving them a compliment. And because people generally love yapping about themselves, it shifts their attention away from you. Now, in terms of status, I think the majority of us wouldn't care in terms of public perceptions, like everyday strangers, because your status is determined by where you live. So if everyone around you have the same resources that you have, there's nothing to be worried about. But most of us only care about our status when it comes to dating, meeting friends and family, and meeting friends of friends. That's when we shy away because we think that they care a lot about where we are in life, which isn't true because if you think about it, when you're worrying about if they care, they're also worrying about if you care. So the reality is, people have their own problems, and caring about your status is probably the last thing on their list of priorities. Most of them just pretend to care out of politeness anyway. With that being said, you caring too much about what other people think will make you come across as a people pleaser and unoriginal, and having the herd mentality, where it leads to you can't think for yourselves and constantly seek others' approval. You're constantly worrying about this, that, what if I make this mistake? But more than half the things that you're worrying about isn't even going to happen. And even if it did, it doesn't matter. People don't care as much as you think they do. They're too busy worrying about themselves. They might react, they might judge, but none of that sticks. They'll forget about it sooner or later. So stop giving a fuck. Stop worrying over little things. Stop caring about NPCs. and start taking action and start living. Leave a comment down below and let me know what is your reason that you care so much. And if you like this video, you might also like this video where I go over how to get rid of a bad habit.